Having a kickabout after college. There's nothing unusual about that. But it's what these young lads have chosen as a career that some people might find intriguing. They're all studying to become Catholic priests at St Patrick's College in Maynooth. At the moment, there are 70 seminarians in the college. 20 of those started this year. Barry White is 23 years old and a fifth-year student. He comes from Rathkenny in County Meath.
It was a thought that had entered my mind from an early age. My parish priest had said to me when I was 12, I was an altar server, and he said, whatever career you want in life, before you go fully commit to it, just ask yourself that question, am I being called to priesthood? So that thought stayed with me throughout my secondary school life. At lunch break in secondary school, I'd pop down to the church when nobody would be looking and just pray and just try and find the courage and the strength to, what does the Lord want from me in my life?
Now you're in your fifth year.
Yes.
And you're enjoying it?
Loving it, yeah. It's, in seminary there's just a wide range of experiences. From, the spiritual, from, prayer in the morning and throughout the day. A day is directed by prayer. And there's, it's developing a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that comes through a lot of effort and a lot of time in the oratory.
Now, a lot of people watching this might be saying, oh my God, you're so young.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
What about, having a partner and having children, marriage?
Yeah.
What would you say to those people?
I'd say that, throughout my discernment process, that question was it was up there, it was a priority. What does, is that desire in my heart, that I don't want to get married, have children? It was, and I really discerned it. And it is struggling with the heart as well. There's this joy of the thought of becoming a priest, but also I'm giving up an awful lot. And during my first year in college, that was a big question, do I want to give up all this? And I prayed about it. And I think you get the strength and the courage to say, okay, the Lord wants me to be, to discern priesthood stronger and go to the seminary.
Your friends and family, what do they think?
My family, mum and dad were very, very supportive. My sister wasn't a big fan of the idea, I have to say. But I think now she's accepted it and she's happy for me because I'm happy.
For Robert Smith from Dublin, his route was different. He's 28 years old and had worked as a management consultant.
Maybe about 2 years into that career, I began to ask myself the big questions. I remember watching Gay Byrne's programme, The Meaning of Life, and I was very uncomfortable with the fact that I couldn't picture myself sitting opposite him. I wouldn't have been able to answer the questions. I didn't have the vocabulary. I hadn't thought about the meaning of life. I hadn't thought about what it's about. So I went off and started Googling what are values, which seems like a ridiculous thing now that I look back on it, but it was the beginning of a change in attitude in me.
Just like Barry, he's willing to sacrifice marriage and children for the church.
Just this morning, actually, I got a Skype video call from a friend of mine in Portugal, and for the first time I got to see his son. He was sitting in his apartment in Lisbon, and I was delighted to see his son bouncing up and down, and I was wave at him, and the modern technology, you see him interacting. But I have to be honest and say, you have a moment where you say, if I continue on this path, I will never have a son of my own. I will never have a family of my own. And that's a sacrifice that one makes to become a priest. But without being too theological about it, when you become a priest, you marry the church. And so you're called to spiritual fatherhood. So I'm called to be a father as a priest, not to my biological children, but to the children in any parish in which I will work. And that's a very lofty call, really, when I stop to think about it.
And the Catholic sexual abuse scandal was another thing to contemplate in his decision.
I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't put off by the fact that the church has gone through a very turbulent history, particularly in the last 40 years or so. It was something that would discourage me. It makes the idea of even entering a seminary even more countercultural than otherwise it might be. So it's something that's very difficult. But the best way for me to try to answer that is, the reason I come to a seminary is because I have a relationship with God and the person of Jesus Christ, and I believe that He is calling me to be His priest.
Now, the numbers entering the seminary remain quite low. So what does that mean for the future of the church?
I do believe the Holy Spirit is moving in a very particular way in Ireland at the moment in the challenges that we're facing, and that that our students can reach this particular goal that is put before them, which is a different church. It's a church perhaps with certainly with less ordained priests than we would be familiar with in this country. But also I think a church which will have the opportunity to unleash and release some of the great talents and skills that perhaps are still somewhat dormant among our lay people.
And while both Barry and Robert are enjoying their time in Maynooth, it won't be long until they're out working in their parishes.